Hello, my name is Alan Dubray. This is a series, part one of a series. It might be 2 or 3 videos. I'm going to be as quick and directly to the point, but as detailed as I can in revealing what's been revealed to me over the past 9 months or so. It all began for me on September 8th, 2017. And for those of you that have received this, we've sent it out. Our focus has been primarily to church pastors around the world, and as well as subscribers that were watching our YouTube channel, Ministry Revealed, who want them for family and friends. Those pastors and churches who have received this throughout the world, you would have received this letter included with this series on a USB stick. So you're most likely watching this on a USB stick. I'm purposely chosen to put them on USBs to send out around the world, so that one day when the internet is down, when YouTube takes down the channels, and when they take down the Christian websites around the world, I pray that these USB sticks will survive. And the reason is the revelation that I'm going to be showing you here throughout scriptures. If you do ever come across my channel, it's called Ministry Revealed, my YouTube channel. And it's been an amazing ride. It's started, like I said, September 8th, 2017, and we are now June 25th, 2018. And what has been revealed to me has been incredible, all backed 100% by scriptures. And for those who haven't received this letter, just to briefly touch on myself as to who I am, my name's Alan Dubray. I'm from Calgary, Alberta, from Canada. I've never been a pastor, minister, preacher, nothing of those sorts. I just would pray to the Lord, use me, Lord, and, never even really opened my Bible, barely ever, to be honest. I would watch the Chuck Misslers and the Perry Stones and, so many around the world, English speaking, and just learn. And when I started my YouTube channel, it was really just to hopefully, just be a part and reach people that maybe some of these big names weren't able to reach, while I was just essentially repeating things that they were saying. But like I said, on September 8th, 2017, everything changed for me. And that's what we're going to talk about here in this video series, that we believe will be for not only the now before the tribulation begins, but that hopefully these USBs, having been sent throughout the world, will be around, or people that will receive them that maybe didn't get to go in the escape will understand what is being revealed in these teachings for those who are left. We're going to cover a number of things, and like I said, I'm going to be as detailed as I can and do it as quickly as I can. And what it's all about is the true length of the tribulation. The tribulation timeline is not 7 years. It's been revealed to me that it is 14 years. And all of these misunderstandings that people have had in trying to understand 42 months and 1260 days and times and half a time in the book of Revelation and where they fit, and so many of us have always taught or have heard and listened to others teach that 42 months and 1260, that's the same time frame, so it means the same thing. And it's been revealed to me that it's not. It's not at all. For those who are watching this USB and haven't had this letter with it, you can always just read here to get just a brief little overview. The true revelation of the understanding of the tribulation timeline is that the true length is 14 years. And I pray you guys will take the time. I know you pastors out there and ministers and preachers are very busy. I understand that. I've been, since September of last year, I no longer run my business. It's just maybe a trickle of things coming in, just a small home business that I had. But we were up to 300 stores, and we were growing by another 305 in the U.S. No more. My focus turned to my Ministry Revealed ministry, and what we call this is our Operation 14 Years, which is to get the understanding of the truth of the 14-year timeline to the world. And we believe that the pastors will be the best way to receive it, the best way to get it out to their people once they understand it as quickly as possible. And hopefully these USBs will survive however things begin, and will be able to reach more people as well. All right. So the true tribulation is 14 years. And this is a great place to start. For me, how it started was in the book of Luke. And what had happened was people generally always teach from the Olivet Discourse in the book of Matthew, in Matthew 24. Occasionally I would hear the Olivet Discourse from Luke, pieces from Luke, but that was it. 90-some% of the time I say it's always from Matthew. And the reason is because, like the understanding of 42 months, 1,260 days, and time times and half a time, people think that it's essentially talking about the same thing. I was revealed on September 8th, 2017 by the Spirit that just made me, whoa, right in the middle of me doing a video, something just jumped out from me, and when I was done the video, I went in and spent some time on it, and it was in Luke. And you know, I barely read my Bible, so as embarrassing as that is, I had to look up to see where the discourse was in Mark. So that's how bad I was with my scriptures. It's not like that anymore. The Spirit working through me has just been revealing, just as Daniel said. When the Spirit of the Lord, the angel of the Lord said to Daniel, when Daniel said, I don't understand what's being said here, in Daniel 12, and he says, just seal up the books. It's not for you, it's for the time of the end. I have the understanding. I don't know why me. I don't know everything. Obviously, none of us do. I'm aware of that. But I understand the timing to the end and who the books are speaking to. It's incredible. I'm going to reveal the understanding to you today and throughout these videos. I don't expect there'll be more than 3 videos. I'm going to try to keep them all within an hour or less, and maybe even less than 3 videos. So however this ends up being. I'm not a professional. You might hear me bounce around, and you can probably tell already, but I'm going to do my best to get it across to you as clearly as possible so that you can understand it. You can go to the scriptures for yourselves. I would recommend, if you don't have a program like this, it's almost like a concordance essentially. It's called eSword. It's an online program that's free. I would recommend you use it if you don't use something like this, because what I'm going to share with you in relation to the understanding of who Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John are speaking to, and how the 14 years relate to all 4 of the books is pretty incredible. And what had happened for me is we've known for years that, you know, Mark and they're speaking to slightly different people. You know, everybody kind of seems to understand that Matthew is speaking to Judah, to the Jews. And we would think that Mark is to the Gentiles. But nobody has really understood with Luke and who Luke speaks to, and then John and who John speaks to. But for the longest time, I never spent too much time in John, because for me, everything came about from the discourses. And there are 3 discourses, all spoken of slightly different. And this was a big deal right here in in Luke. When we're here in Luke, there's so many things that stand out. But this was the biggest thing for me right here. In Luke's discourse, Luke jumps in right here at the beginning to say, then said he, Jesus, unto them. Who is Jesus saying unto them? Why is Luke referring to Jesus said unto them? Well, the them that he's speaking to is Mark's group and Matthew's group. And it was really amazing when I started realizing that, or when it was revealed to me through the scriptures, that you start to understand why there's these slight differences in terminology. You understand why Luke doesn't talk about the abomination of desolation like Mark does and like Matthew does. And the reason is because there's going to be an abomination of desolation for Mark's group, and there's going to be an abomination of desolation for Matthew's group. Remember, it's 14 years. And the importance of this right now, I wish we had come to the understanding of of putting out a USB like this for the churches a long time ago, because I believe we're right down to the tail end, and we're probably looking at this starting in July. And the reason I say that is when you understand that the tribulation truly is 14 years, and we are going to cover it in detail. I'm not going to spend too much time in the books, but I'm going to prove to you who the Gospels are speaking to. And the 14 years, the importance of the understanding goes back to the apostasy. When there's this falling away that's going to take place, obviously these teachings aren't going to reach everybody because we know that the apostasy takes place. But the more people we can reveal the truth of the 14 years, we might be able to save some during the tribulation time frame. Because people, with what's about to begin here, this year in 2018, with the escape of the bride, the bride is not the church. Luke is speaking to the bride. All right? Mark speaking to the church / Gentiles, or Israelites, right? The trees grafted in. But Luke is speaking to the bride, the tithe, the 10% of the church. That's who Luke is speaking to. And so the importance of these 14 years and this understanding is going to save lives for Christ during the time of tribulation, especially during those first 6 to 7 years of seals, 6.5, 7 years of seals. Because when this begins at some point this year, I believe in July, at some point this July, please ignore that. Don't say, oh, here we go, a date setter. No, that's not what I'm doing. That's not the purpose of this. It's to teach the truth of the 14 years and where we're at, but more so the truth of the 14 years. When we go into some of these programs, we could see that it teaches, many of you pastors out there know that Jesus died in 2 BC, was born in 2 BC and was crucified in 31 AD. If that in fact is true, and by many authorities that you guys know, more than I do, but even from my research, that it was in fact in the year 31 that he died. If we go back 14 years from 2031, we're right now where we are currently in the year 2018. Because it's a year, I'm sure you guys understand this, but for those who don't, a year goes from spring to spring. I believe it was Rome through the Catholic Church or somewhere along those lines when they had changed the beginning of the year in spring, which is where April Fools comes from. The French used to make fun of those that hadn't changed over to the fact that spring was no longer, or the new year was no longer in spring, but was now in January 1st. And they would cut out these fish and they would make a joke by sticking it on their backs. So prior to that, a few hundred years ago, spring had always been the new year. So when I'm relating to this, I'm always saying from spring to spring. We're currently in the spring of 2018. Well, actually, no, we're not. We just began summer of 2018. But I do believe that a seal may have opened, but that we are in the time. And we're going to touch on that in some videos. But if in fact Jesus died in the year 31 AD, well, we have to think about it a lot more. So there's so many churches that just aren't talking about the end days because they're just afraid to reveal and to get the people ready, or they just don't understand it. And I'm praying that that's what these teachings will do, is give the understanding. Because if you realize that Jesus said he's coming back after 2,000 years, right, after 2 days, then 2031 is the year of his return at the fall feasts. You see what I'm saying? So if we go back 7 years from that for what people believe is the tribulation of 7 years, that puts you in some point in 2024. Remember, spring to spring, right? And then 2031, the fall feasts, and then the millennium, I believe, will begin in spring of 2032. But again, forget those dates of me saying stuff like that, with the exception of the fact that Jesus said after 2 days and 2,000 years, and 2031 is 2,000 years. If we go back 7 years, it puts you 2024. it leaves only approximately 7 years left before the tribulation begins, if the tribulation was 7 years. But it's not. The tribulation is 14 years, and I'm going to show it to you throughout these videos with the understanding of these scriptures that completely reveal it. And that would put us in the time that we're in right now. And when I show you Zechariah and the understanding of Zechariah, and I show you the understanding of Hosea, that, you see that it just turns out the only 2 books in the Old Testament that are 14 chapters long are Hosea and Zechariah. And within them, they perfectly line up to the last 14 years. In Hosea chapter 1 verse 2, God tells Hosea, go get your bride. In Zechariah 1, it explains everything that has taken place this year in 2018 in order, right to the 70th anniversary of Israel as a nation. You see, these understandings, when people thought that the tribulation was going to begin in 1988, 88 Reasons Why, and all those other things, it was impossible because Israel wasn't a generation yet. We know from Psalms 90 and 10 a generation is 70 years. And we're going to touch on that, because what most people do is they talk about that portion in Psalms 90 verse 10, but they only talk about, see, this is where it says a generation is 70 years, but they never understand the rest of the verse, so they tend to never touch on it. In fact, they never touch on it in every teaching I've seen. And it's because they don't have the understanding in how it applies to the tribulation time, the end days, that if it says 70 years to 80, well, what does that mean? How is it to 80 being sorrow and travail, or sorrow and labor, which means tribulation? There's 10 years already, but then it says, and then soon we fly away. So what does that all mean? We're going to talk about that here to explain that on these videos as well. All right, so here within Luke, sorry, give me a moment. So here within Luke, this was a big thing that jumped out with me, was he jumps in black letters here saying, Jesus said unto them, and it was revealed that he's speaking as if, Luke is speaking as if he overheard Mark and Matthew. All right? Even though we know Luke wasn't one of the apostles. He was a later, right? So when you read through this, you come to the understanding that Luke's group that he's speaking to is being given completely different understanding because of who he's speaking to. See, again, he jumps in again. See the parable, the lesson of the fig tree? And he spoke unto them a parable. And this parable is different than the other 2. All right? I don't want to spend too much time on this because the importance is going to be the 14 years. I just want to give you a little overview of how it began for me, very, very brief. But if you're seeing this and the internet and everything is still going, which I pray and I'm sure it will be, that you can go to my Ministry Revealed YouTube channel and see some more videos there for yourself. And just really get an understanding of what this escape is here. Right? Watch ye therefore and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Right? And then how does it end up? Look at this. And all the people came early in the morning to him into the temple to hear him. Mark's discourse and Matthew's discourse don't have any of this. What do they have? Watch. In Mark's discourse, which is very much more similar to Matthew's discourse, what do we have even for the abomination of desolation? We have standing where it ought not. Where in Matthew, we have standing in the holy place. This is what it means by let him that readeth understand. There are 2 applications that are going to happen. One with the Antichrist, when he is given his power to continue 42 months, and one when Satan returns at the fifth trumpet, when he loses his battle in heaven. All right, that's why they're spoken of slightly different. Because in Matthew, standing in the holy place, it's because the holy place is going to get rebuilt during the first 3.5 years of the trumpets, even during troublous times. We're going to cover that as well. All right, but now let's look down here. Well, you notice how everything is red letter words from the beginning of it, right? See, right here, before this begins, in Luke, he had his black words, his words where he jumps in, and he says, and Jesus said unto them. You don't see that in Mark, and you don't see that in Matthew. It is all Jesus' words speaking the whole way through. And it's significant to the understanding. Now see, this is what we all like to talk about. Many, many people that do teach eschatology are teaching that, but of that day and hour no man knows. Because we find it in Mark, and in Mark's discourse, and we find it in Matthew's discourse. So let's go to the end of Matthew's discourse. See, but of that day and hour knows no man, right? Luke's discourse does not have this portion. Nor do either of them have any words where they finish up the discourses. It is all red letter Jesus the whole way through. Only Luke's discourse has him jumping in throughout, and then finally, where they have, but of that day and hour knows no man, Luke's group doesn't have that. Luke's group, Jesus ends with saying, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time, right? You know this one. For as a snare it shall come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. But for those who are accounted worthy to escape all these things. This group here that Luke is addressing is the bride of Christ. And the bride of Christ is the first fruits. It all goes back to the harvest that the Jews, that is traditional in Jewish history. You have a first fruits, you have a main harvest, and let me do it down here. So you have a first fruits, you have a main harvest, and then you have the corners and the gleaning of the harvest, the stuff that fell to the ground and the corners that they don't touch when they do the main harvest. The first fruits of the wheat harvest is the bride, which is what we're waiting on. The escape of the bride. The rapture I can prove in the year 2024, but just ignore, like I said, these dates. Account for these dates if you'd like, but just don't worry and spend too much time on your focus of the dates. Just that the understanding is 6.5 to 7 years later, in the year on Pentecost 2024, the rapture of the church is going to happen. And right before that, at Hanukkah in the year 2023, the 144,000 are going to get sealed with Christ here on Mount Zion. Somehow Mount Zion is coming down, whether it's somehow above the earth or on mountaintop somewhere, however that's going to work. I'm going to even show you where that is revealed, that he's returning at trumpets. It's what Daniel 9 talks about. He's returning at trumpets, but he's only going to stay for 3.5 years. And only the 144,000 are going to be bringing people to him in Jerusalem. It is so incredible. Prior to September 8th of last year, I had zero of this understanding. I didn't even know they were questions. I've never heard of 14 years in my entire life. Like I said, I didn't really go to church. I didn't read my Bible a couple times a year, maybe once in a while. I didn't even know they were questions. But everything changed. Something happened with the Spirit entering me on September just to reveal this understanding. And I'm praying that you guys are still listening and that you will continue to listen to the rest of the series. It's not going to take too much out of your life to spend a little bit of time understanding this truth. Because when the escape of the bride happens, it's going to be the tribulation of the seals for the church, followed by the tribulation with Jesus' wrath, the Lamb's wrath, which is upon Judah during trumpets. All right, the time of the Gentiles will come to an end after the seals, right, which I'm saying is in the year 2024. And then the time of the Lamb's wrath is going to begin trumpets. God's wrath, of course, is the bowls. Okay? So if we want to get a really good, I'll show you something else too. This was after the revelation of who these discourses were speaking to in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I was blown away. I had done a video on it, and I had people contacting me, just people watching YouTube, that have wondered for many years. One guy in particular was wondering for 20 years in his life. He had a question when he was about 20 years old and never dug into it to find out for himself, but often wondered who they were speaking to. And I reveal Matthew is to Judah, and that's not the big mystery. But Mark is to the church, or lost tribes, if you will. All right, the wild olive tree and the green olive tree together, right? And then Luke, now you'll understand, is speaking to the bride, the group that is going to escape all these things, just like we would as men with our brides. If we know the danger is about to be released and coming, we're going to do everything to take our bride out of the way. We're going to remove her and bring her to safety before everything begins. All right? And then just recently, with more digging, it was revealed that, and I had a suspicion of it, but it was revealed now that John is speaking to the 144,000. And there's another thing too. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but we know how Psalms, right? Psalms is the 19th book. The 48th chapter, for example, you can see how it talks about Israel becoming a nation again. And then in 1967, 19 years later, you go to the 67th verse, and you could see talk about how they get Israel again, and or Jerusalem. And there always appears to be a relation in the book of Psalms since 1900s that relates. So we're in the year 2018, and if we go look at the chapter 118, we can see the relation of things that are about to begin in 2018. Well, I also found the relation to chapter 18. There's a 100-year gap that will replay itself, giving the detail of each chapter. It's really, really incredible. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because within that count, if you continued that same count in the book of Psalms, which was discovered decades ago, that there's this correlation within the Psalms to the years, and you carry that forward, when you get to the book of John, John 1 falls in the year 2011. And it ends in the year 2031. It's incredible when you understand what is in here. Remember, I showed what does it say for Luke, for example. Let me just give you a very brief understanding. How does the Olivet Discourse of Luke end, right? And all the people, so this is the bride here, and all the people came early in the morning to him in the temple for to hear him. All right, this is Luke telling us at the end of the discourse that all the people would go early in the morning to the temple to the Lord, go see the Lord. Okay? When we go into John, and we go into John for the one that relates to 2018, so this is 2011, remember, spring to spring, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, here's 2018. Is there anything in 2018 that would represent Luke's discourse to the bride? Well, watch this. Look at this, verse 2. And early in the morning he came again into the temple, and all the people came unto him and sat down, and he taught them. In the same, how is it that this lines up? The correlation is exactly what Luke's discourse ends with, that no other discourse ends with, and it lands in the year 2018. Or we go to the year 2024, which would be 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So we can go into chapter 14 of John, and we should be able to see something that's going to relate to the rapture. It's incredible. Watch this. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And that where I go to prepare a place for you, I will come and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you are too. The rapture, where they're going in the rapture? To paradise. It's incredible. It's all over like this. And then watch this. Let's go to the last one. Let's go to the year for 2031. And if Jesus came the first time at the escape of the bride, and he's returning, and he's going to be hanging out, he's going to be staying for 3.5 years when he returns at the end of seals for the beginning of trumpets. He's going to stay for 3.5 years. But this is the second time he comes. And he's going to leave after 3.5 years when Satan's cast out of heaven. When he does, he's got to return again. But when he does return the final time, what do we know? We know that when he returns the final time, it's going to be the third time that he's come, with this understanding of the 14 years, bride, rapture, he's going to leave, and then he's going to return to the Mount of Olives and set his foot down on the Mount of Olives at the end of the 2,000 years, right? So that'll be as if he came the third time, okay? So let's see if we have something here with him having come the third time. Look at that. It is now the third time that I've come to show myself to the disciples. And you can continue on reading it into here. And just in how it talks and relates to the 144,000. The whole story of the apostle, the one that Jesus loved. And Peter says, why is he following us? And Jesus says, what's it to you if he stays till the end? This is the end. And we're in the book of John, which is speaking as an overall generality. Remember, I'm not saying that what the pastors and what you guys have been teaching for the last decades and decades and decades and thousands of years is wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying what has been revealed to me is how this is understood for the end days. That is the understanding that I'm getting across. And that's what's being spoken of throughout all of these books. And I'm going to show you something before I get too much further in that is just going to give you an absolute confirmation of who these books are speaking to in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Gospels. But before I do, no, you know what? I'm going to go into that right away. And I'm going to show you afterwards that verse, Psalms 90 and 10, and exactly how it relates. Maybe I'll put it in the second video. I'll just finish off by showing you some glimpses that explain who these books are speaking to. And this was a new revelation that came to me just in this past week. I had a subscriber send me this because I've been teaching and showing and revealing to people that follow me on my channel the truth of who these Gospels are speaking to. So then now these people that have been following me are going and checking out what people call contradictions within the Gospels, that they're not contradictions at all. They're actually speaking in different ways and in different terms and in different terms and meanings and sometimes within the colors because of who they're addressing in an end-time understanding. It is really interesting, but I have had now other subscribers, other brothers and sisters in Christ who have been sending me information to show me, hey, look at this, look at this, look at how it shows this here, this here, this here, and they're all different. What do you think that means? And then I would go in and I'll do a video explaining it. And I'm going to do that for you in this portion right now. We see that, let me show you. This one is a very simple one, and it is so profound. And I'm going to end this video on this, and like I said, it was kind of like an introduction. I'm going to show you a brief ending here with evidence of who these books are speaking to based on the end days, and then I'm going to reveal in the next video, and we're going to dig into the 14-year understanding and how and who these books are speaking to with relation of when events are going to take place based on what the scriptures tell us on the 14 years, and you're going to be blown away. But let's finish this up because this is important, and it's it's simple but interesting. I never caught it. Like I said, it was a subscriber that sent it to me, and I'm going to share it with you now. It's all about the robe that Jesus was given to be crucified with. Right? They had torn off his clothes and they gave him a robe. However, in 3 of the 4 Gospels, the robe is a different color. Now, why is the robe a different color in 3 out of the 4? Meaning, 2 of them have the same color. And I'm gonna explain this to you because even the color isn't the exact same color on the ones that match. All right? So we see here in John 19, they give Jesus a purple robe. When we go into Luke 23, in Luke 23:11, we see that they give him a gorgeous robe. Very interesting. A gorgeous robe. It's not even like a color, right? It's a gorgeous robe, it's called. And these are all in the same scenario. They're all the same scenario with his crucifixion time. We go into Mark, and what do we see in Mark? We see purple again. All right? So John had purple, Luke had gorgeous, and Mark has purple. Now when we go into Matthew, what does Matthew have? Matthew has Jesus in a scarlet robe. Maybe some of you have seen this before because, I mean, this is what you guys do. You've studied your scriptures. I'm new to this. This is 9 months for me. And the ride has been so awesome. Sorry, I'm just grabbing sips of coffee along the way. But you've probably seen this before, and maybe some of you understand it. Maybe some of you have come to the understanding and the Spirit has already revealed to you who these Gospels are speaking to in relation to the end times. I've never heard them. In these different pastors, English-speaking pastors from around the world, I've never heard it. I've never heard it in churches. So I thought it would be great to add to this 14-year understanding of the tribulation because it's the insight as to who is where. The bride is the first fruits of the church. The 144,000 are the first fruits of Judah. All right? You have the first fruits of the wheat harvest and then the wheat harvest. Then you have the first fruits of the grape or the fruit harvest and then the fruit harvest. All right? And within those two, there's always things that have fallen to the ground. The leftover, the corners and gleaning that it's called, that are left in both that will be here till the end when Christ returns. All right? So what is this understanding then? With Matthew being scarlet. All right? Scarlet is just straight simply crimson. It is just the color. And there is a longer study on kernel and so forth. We know that there's an insect regarding the crimson and so forth, right? But the color, it's just strictly understood as color. Okay? When we go to Mark, this is where it gets really interesting. Because in Mark, it's just like in Matthew how scarlet is just simply the color scarlet. In Mark, the color purple is simply the color purple. All right? Red, blue. All right? The red-blue color itself, which makes purple. Nothing special about it. Okay? But it starts to get interesting. See, red, blue. When we go to Luke, we saw that his was gorgeous. And within this gospel, it's the only one, within the gospels, only at the crucifixion is Pilate with Herod. Right? Did Pilate go to see Herod? And look at this. Enemies that became friends. It really sounds, and where are we? We're in the Gospel of Luke. It really sounds like the time we're in right now. We hear an American president saying a lot of this right now, making friends with the enemies. Right? He believes he can make friends with the enemies. There's a lot of talk of this right now, right? But now when we look at gorgeous in Luke's group, because it's talking to the bride, that's why it's gorgeous, because they're the ones that are going to be turned to light. The bride, when they escape, is this one that's going to be changed, just instantly changed, right? And look, it means bright, clear, magnificent, white, gorgeous. This is the bride. The bride is going to get this radiant escape because the bride is going away and is not coming back till everything is done. The bride I'm going to show you in 2 Corinthians goes to the third heaven. When the rapture happens, the rest of the church, or the main harvest of the church, when that happens, they're not going to the third heaven. They're going to paradise. And where's paradise? It's going to be with the Lord on Mount Zion. Whatever this Mount Zion is that he's coming down with, however that's going to look, that's where they're going. That's where their place is prepared for them. All right? But now, let's go into John's purple. All right? John has purple also, but let's go back and look at Mark's purple. See, Mark's purple is the Greek word 4209. 4209. Luke's purple is 4210. And Luke's purple 4210 isn't red, blue equals purple. It's bluish red for that color of purple. It comes from the root of Mark's purple because they're going to be around at the same time as Mark's purple. Remember from Revelation 7, we see the 144,000 get sealed before the trumpets begin. And then what do we see? We see the rapture of the church. So they've been around at the same time, but this angel that rises from the east in Revelation 7 tells those that are going to release the first 4 trumpets not to do it till we have sealed the 144,000 first. All right? We're going to seal these 144,000 before we rapture the church, because they're going to go out and help us collect the church for the rapture and bring them to Mount Zion. All right? That's where the rapture is going to go. All of this begins to make sense when you understand 14 years. When we go to Revelation 14, that's why we see the Lamb stood on Mount Zion and the 144,000 with him. I struggled with it for a long time. Or when we go to the Church of Philadelphia, which is about the 144,000, it is not the bride. The bride is spread throughout all of the churches. She's a piece of all of the churches. The 144,000 are the Church of Philadelphia. That's why it says that they're going to go and bow to the feet or sit at the feet of them. They're not going to come sit at the feet of the bride. They're coming to sit at the feet of the 144,000 who are going throughout the earth in the power of the Lamb. Right? How is it that the Lamb is on Mount Zion? Jesus is on Mount Zion and the 144,000 are with him. They never really leave the earth. Whatever this thing is above the earth or however it's settled on the earth, this Mount Zion, they're there with them. Right? They're sealed. They were redeemed. They were sealed from among men on the earth, which is why they had to get sealed before the rapture. And in Revelation 7, we see that it's after the 6th seal, before Revelation 8 and the 7th seal comes, so they all experience the seals. The 144,000 do, and the church does outside of those that were taken out and escaped as the bride. So that's why you see the 144,000 here, and then you see the raptured church. All right? Because 144,000, so you can say John, the 144,000, Mark, the church. Or we say, the grafted in, the lost tribes, however we want to look at it. In the West, we often say the church. So Here's your 144,000, Book of John, Gospel of John. Here's your raptured church, right? The main harvest. And this is the book of Mark. And what did we see? That they're both purple. How is it that they're both purple, even though they're speaking to different groups? It's because, look at the difference. John's purple isn't the same purple. It's a difference of one number, and it means this one right here. Well, watch what this means. I'll do a quick word search for you because it was so incredible when this was revealed to me that I need to show it. Okay? We can go, if you let it just means a purple. So if we click this one, it's just going to tell us the definition of the purple. Okay? We can see the definition of the purple. But now, let's go to the modern definition of what this is. All right? The modern definition is this one. And look what it means. So it's from the Latin, and it is a woman in childbirth. Per means child, and para means to give birth. This time is called, I'm sorry, I'm really bad with this understanding of this. Purim is the time immediately after the birth of a baby. So John's purple that we're reading here is referred to as that portion immediately after the birth of a child. Okay? So where do we get this understanding of immediately after the birth of a child? Remember that the 144,000 are sealed after the sixth seal. Then I believe the time frame is about 6 months from late 2023 till Pentecost of 2024. They're gathering. There's going to be massive revival from these 144,000 around the world gathering the church for the rapture. And where do we get this understanding? So we see that they're after the sixth seal, before the seventh seal. Okay? So where else would we get this understanding? Well, how about Revelation 12? There's the Revelation 12:1 sign. That hasn't happened yet. I know everybody believes, or many believe, that it happened September 23rd. It did not. But then we have the tribulation here. See, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. The bride is gone after seeing this sign. She's not going to be here to go through any of the travail. Then what are we going to see? The dragon, a planetary system most likely, casting a third of the stars. But this is what I wanted to get at here. Revelation 12:5. What do we see? She brought forth a man-child. Jesus returning to the earth, but not on the earth, I should say. It's not when he returns at the very end in 2031, 14 years later, and sets his foot on Mount of Olives. This is when he returns and he is seen somehow, however that's going to look, with Mount Zion. And this is where the 144,000 gets sealed. See, they're going to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and then you have your rapture of your church. Your main harvest of the wheat harvest. All right? Jesus returns, 144,000 get sealed, rapture. Well, it seems crazy. I thought it was insane to look at and say, well, Jesus isn't coming at the end of seals. He's coming at the end of trumpets at the very end. But I showed you that it says the third time he comes. Very interesting. When you understand where these scriptures fit and who they're talking to and when, everything opens up with this 14-year understanding. So if Jesus returns, seals the 144,000, and then the rapture of the church, the main harvest, we should be able to see that within the tribulation. Let's go to the seals. All right? Look at the sixth seal. Black as sackcloth, cast the fig trees, right? I mean, the figs, as if casting her untimely figs from being shaken. But then what do we see? All sorts of men, chief captain, great men, small men, everybody goes and hides themselves in the mountains and says unto the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall stand? So what this is telling us is they're seeing Jesus coming. They see him. The face of him that sits on the throne and the wrath of the Lamb. They see him, which is why they're asking and they're yelling at the mountains to fall on him, because they're so panicked at what they're seeing. And then what do we see next? The angel coming, saying, hold on to the four trumpets first, the first four trumpets. We have to seal the 144,000. And for the next 6 months after they get their seal, what have they done? They've gathered the rest of the church, the rapture of the church. It's exactly the Revelation 12 portion at this portion here, Revelation into Revelation 5. Jesus comes, seals the 144,000, rapture of the church. But what a lot of people are doing right now is with that sign, they're saying that the sign happened September 23rd and that we're at about the 9-month time frame and she's about to give birth, and that's when we get caught up. Well, see, this is where the understanding's missing, because these other things haven't happened yet. There's been no travailing in pain. There hasn't been a wonder, a red dragon in the sky, a celestial body that's cast anything to the earth in a major meteor storm that's devastating. It just hasn't happened yet. Right? And the understanding of the 14 years is the revelation. Right? Look at all these things from Revelation 12:1 to the point where it says 1,260 days. These things happen during the tribulation first, and then she flees for 1,260 days. And then while she flees for 1,260 days, these things take place, and then what happens? Satan is cast down to the earth, and when Satan gets cast down to the earth, then there's another time frame of a time times and half a time. So you have 3.5 years here. You have 3.5 years here after this whole time frame from Revelation 12:1 through Revelation 12:5. We're already 7 years and whatever Revelation 1 through 5 is, which is the first 7 years of seals, which is the seals. It's right there. All right? So when we're looking at that and we say that John has also purple, and we know many people have studied way more than me and understand that John has always appeared to be speaking to a group within the church. They're not part of the church, but it's a group within them. And it's true, because they're speaking to the 144,000 within that group that are being selected, that are being chosen as the 144,000, who didn't know Jesus the way the bride did, or they would have been counted worthy to have been the bride at that point. But they have done and had the requirements that Jesus said in Revelation 14 that these people would have to have, that if they were to be part of the 144,000, which is like Nathanael, right? No guile found him, an Israelite indeed, in whom no guile is found, right? So that's your revelation here. A quick, simple, as simple as I could show it, that why is Matthew scarlet, Mark is purple, John is purple, but Luke is gorgeous. All colors of robes being described in the Gospels, with the only two being the same yet slightly different, because they're part of the same group but a separate group within that group. And why? If we go to Revelation 17, I know that you pastors know this, obviously, so forgive me if I'm covering things that you're like, yes, I get this, all right? But please, I'm sure you're going to find things in here that are going to be blessings for you and blessings for your family and for those who are listening. And I pray that maybe even people who are listening after maybe we've disappeared, we've vanished as the bride, if we're found accounted worthy, that these USBs are going to be left for those who didn't get to be, and they'll come across it and they'll learn from it as well, so that they're not dismayed when 3.5 years of the tribulation comes and goes and they realize that they're still here when they maybe were expecting a mid-tribulation rapture. All right? This revelation, this is such a big thing, because this revelation of the 14 years reveals the true understanding of the much argued and debated yet never agreed upon pre-tribulation, mid-tribulation, and post-tribulation raptures or returns of Christ. These are debated all the time between churches. It splits churches. It has split churches for those that believe in a pre-tribulation and those that believe in a mid-tribulation. This revelation of the 14 years and who the books are speaking to shows that they're all correct. That's why there's an argument, because there's scriptures that prove that, wait a second, there is a pre-tribulation, quote-unquote, rapture or escape. There is rapture evidence on a mid-tribulation. There is evidence of when he returns at the end. They're all true. These teachings are going to reveal the understanding that it's truly 14 years. It's going to show you where the 42 months are, where the 1260 days are in the time, times, and half a time. It's going to show you, like I've been saying, the pre-tribulation. That's what a little bit of this one was. It showed that there is a pre-tribulation. It shows that there's a mid-tribulation. And it shows that Jesus is returning at the end on the Mount of Olives. That they're all correct. They're all proven, and they're all debatable in the Bible because they're all true. What most of us have come to learn and be raised in the church is that everybody within the church is the bride. And it's just not the truth. There is a portion within all the churches, a tithe, a 10% of those who are repentant. Paul says he died daily, right? He repents daily from his sin. He spends time with the Lord daily, right? It's not just that he's accepted Jesus Christ one time and then goes back and lives his regular life, doesn't spend any time with him, never repents for his sins that he's having, never gives thanks for anything that he receives. No. There's a special group within the church, a portion, a tithe, a 10%, that goes first. And that is who Luke is speaking to. That's why Luke says, watch and pray always that you may be found accounted worthy. Nobody's going to know who's especially accounted worthy until that time. Why are those others having to stay during the tribulation of the seals for the Gentiles, right? Why are they having to stay through it if they had said that they believe in Jesus, but, they weren't repentant and doing these things? Why are they having to stay? They're having to stay to be repentant, to turn and give everything to him in their belief, right? Give him thanks. It's going to be a very, very difficult time. I know you guys know that. Many of you receiving this maybe don't touch the book of Revelation too much or at all. Never get into eschatology. And many of you that I'm sending this to, you do. This revelation, these revelations that I'm revealing here from who these Gospels are speaking to, that I've just shown you in a simplest way with which colors are the robes in which Gospel, or what color are the robes in which Gospel, revealing who the bride is, revealing who the 144,000 are, who the main harvest of the church is, who the grapes are, who, like for Judah, which was the one that we generally all knew the most straightforward of. What I'm showing here, what I'm revealing here is all true. And so I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to get into this next video. And this next video, we're going to dig into the complete understanding as best I can without just going in too deep into so many levels. And if there's any questions that you guys have, I have put my phone number here. I have my email here, and I would ask that you please go for the email first and maybe try a phone call later if you'd like. Leave me a voicemail. But this is my email, and I would be happy to discuss it with you, to maybe help reveal more in the understanding, and to go back and forth with scriptures opened, and we can go back and forth and get this understanding. This is why I say, you know, in the days back in the 80s, you know, when people believed it was in 1988 or they believed prior, it wasn't easy just going to the scriptures without having a program like this where we can go in and find the description of all of these words. We would read our Bibles and say that purple is purple is purple. Right? It said purple here, it said purple here. It just means purple. But when we have something like a program like this, we could see the details of these words, that they don't always mean the same thing. And it is a revelation that multiplies the understanding, especially in eschatology in these late days that we are in. And when I show you in the next video this revelation of 14 years, and there may be a third video because the time goes by really quick when these teachings get going, when I may say for the third one, Zechariah and Hosea, that reveal the 14-year timeline, along with Psalms 18 and 118 to Psalms 31, 32 to Psalms 131, 132. It's absolutely incredible. And so see, when we get into that purple, just to finish off, we see that purple and that scarlet. What time is the purple and scarlet? During the tribulation. See? And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet. The same definitions from Mark and from Matthew. No gorgeous here, because the bride isn't going to go through any of it. Do you understand? Like I said, if you would like to have more understanding and more revelations, I could show you in so many other scriptures the truth of who these books are speaking to. But I pray that that's enough to make you go, huh, look at that. That you're going to continue on to this next video that is going to reveal the truth of the 14 years. I'll reveal why this confusion of 7 years and why people thought it was only 7. Jesus does return at trumpet, so it could seem like it's only 7. But that's just to the end of the time of the Gentiles. All right? There's still Judah's time. Jesus fulfilled 3.5 years in his ministry. When he returns at trumpets, he's going to fulfill his final 3.5 years. Right? That's exactly what Daniel tells us. Look at this. Let's go to Daniel 9:25. Right? Or let's go here. Daniel 9:26. And after 3.5 years. This 70, we've always been taught, means 20, 20, and 20. However, it doesn't only mean that. It means as marking, like let's say this NOS. I score it, mark 1. I'm going to score it with a line 2. I'm going to score it with a line 3. And there's a revelation in Genesis that tells us that this understanding also means to score, as in to mark off. That this is 3.5 years. When Isaac Newton said it was a disservice to add them all together, that Daniel was trying to give an understanding as to what was being said here, and they were 2 separate periods. And it's true. It related to when Jesus came the first time. It relates to when he's coming this time. There was a declaration in 1583 or 84, I think it was. And if you do this calculation, it brings us to the year 2018, this year. another thing that brings us to 2018. But look what it says. When they're rebuilding Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince. This is literally Jesus Christ, capital P. Why would they be rebuilding Jerusalem at the beginning of trumpets, starting in the year 2024, maybe late 2024 into 2025? Why are they building it to Jesus? Why would the Jews and everybody be building it to Jesus? Doesn't seem to make sense. Because he's going to be here on Mount Zion, where the raptured group is going to go. And how long is he going to stay? 3.5 years. He's going to finish his ministry. He had 3.5 years left in his ministry. His 7 years will end. And then Satan is going to lose his battle in heaven and be cast down to the earth. Right at the same time that we see in the timeline of Revelation 12. Right? When he loses his battle against Michael and his angels. And he's cast down to the earth, and he realizes he has but a short time. And he chases the 144,000, and Jesus leaves. However that's going to look when Jesus in Zion, however it vanishes, goes away, I don't know. But Jesus says he's going to cut himself off in Daniel for the final 3.5 years. And here we have those final 3.5 years when they flee into the wilderness. All right? So that's just a little taste. You guys, for me, it's an end, and I'm going to do the next video either later tonight or tomorrow. But for you guys, just click on part 2. This is the end of part 1. I pray that it's reached you, that you have watched it, that you have spent your time. Go through the scriptures, and please don't believe what you've read or what you've seen me read, but go to these scriptures for yourselves and prove them to be true. And if you have any questions, email me or call me. Leave me a voicemail if I don't answer. All right? But preferably send me an email first, and I would be happy to go through it, because the time we are currently living in is short. Jesus said 2,000 years. And if my 14 years is correct, and it is, then the tribulation, the escape of the bride and the tribulation is going to begin. And when we get into the video with Zechariah, it's going to open your eyes and make you say, wow. All right? It's the revelation Daniel was talking about. It's what Isaac Newton was saying in the end days. There's going to be a group of men revealed, digging for the truth. And that's what's happened. The Spirit has entered me, as I'm sure it has many around the world, and has revealed me these truths. And that's what we're going to get into next. The revelation in depth of 14 years, and then either within that or the next video, the third one, if you see a third one attached, it's going to be these books that reveal the 14 years. All right? I love you guys. God bless you. Thank you for all the work you've done over the years and that you continue to do. And pray and watch always that you may be found accounted worthy. I love you. God bless you and your families, and we'll see you in the next part.